Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with Tina Whitlock. And Tina, first of all, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan, for inviting me. I'm
No
really
problem.
honored to be a part of this.
No problem. So just to give a little background, Tina is one of 5 women who is coaching Major League Baseball. She's a 4th coach for the St. Louis Cardinals, and this is her first year on the job. She was about 2.5 weeks into spring training, and then all of a sudden, the world came to a screeching halt due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Tina, first of all, I'll start off here with kind of a 2-part question. I mean, how did it feel, being a trailblazer out on the cutting edge, one of 5 women entering into, the Major League Baseball coaching ranks this year, and then as that built up and you're starting to get acclimated to the job, what was the feeling that, hey, go home?
It is the strangest weather delay that I've ever been a part of. And just like the antics that you see out there on the field during a weather delay, we are all kind of experiencing that, I think, and trying to, stay positive through all this event. I personally felt a little bit of disbelief at first, like, no, this can't be this serious. I honestly would have to admit that. However, when I got home and started talking with my family and actually getting a chance to listen in to what was going on, listening either from the news or from the people on the front lines and starting to see the seriousness of this, things sunk in. And I truly got rooted in prayer. I knew that one of the things that I can contribute to this time of wait and this time of uncertainty and this time of tragedy, that praying and staying positive and giving encouragement to the people within my network was going to be the most impact that I can make.
Yeah, no, I can completely relate with that. And you've been one of those in my network who I'm always looking forward to seeing your posts on social media and that sort of stuff to kind of, keep us going and keep us rooted in faith and, trusting in the Lord and understanding that, this too shall pass without a doubt.
Absolutely.
So you were a standout collegiate softball player, and you're now coaching in Major League Baseball. Although you did play both baseball and softball growing up. So tell me a little bit about, how you got involved with both sports, and then, how did you make you'd coached with the British national team softball for a while. So how did the transition go from playing baseball, playing softball, being a standout softball player, and then, kind of coaching both to now being a Major League Baseball coach?
Well, when I was young, I started out playing Little League Baseball and transitioned into fast pitch in middle school and in high school. And living out in Southern California, we had the opportunity to play winter ball. In my junior and senior years, I started to specialize in my sport and really focus on earning a college scholarship. I knew that I needed a little bit more training, and winter ball offered that. So I went out for the winter ball baseball team. My coach, Butch Smith, he allowed my sister and I both to train. It was truly an iron sharpens iron situation. The guys were all focused. We had a really amazing team at that time, several guys that ended up going to the draft. And so we were there to make each other better. And as I transitioned into collegiate softball and earned that scholarship and played at South Carolina, my career went to the highest of levels, having a chance to train with the USA national team for 3 years, to play professionally for 1 year before I hung up and started my family, and then started my coaching career. I decided that when I got out of my collegiate coaching career, one of the things that I did was I just prayed about that next step. And I did ask God to expand my territory, that whole prayer of Jabez. And when, after doing that, the doors opened up to coach with the British, but the doors also opened up to coach some Little League Baseball in the development area, or travel baseball, I should say. And when those doors opened, what I realized is I was coming full circle with my coaching career. before going to Japan, I'd gotten a call from Major League Baseball from Tyrone Brooks, and he had asked me if I was interested in an opportunity. And I told him, when we got done with the World Games, I would give him a call back and that I would pray about it. And during that whole time, I got in touch with Charles Peterson, who is a scout for the St. Louis Cardinals here in the area. He's now a special assistant scout. He had a promotion, so that's really good for Charles. But he was a kind of a colleague of mine in the private development side, because when he was in his off season, he would come and give private lessons. So he knew that I had an interest, and he knew that scouting was something I would do, because I have the University of South Carolina right in my backyard. So some of the best baseball comes to my backyard, which is only like 5 minutes away. So I, just started getting back into the game by going into the games, and I would be given little assignments, and some of them weren't so little, maybe some of them were kind of big, I don't know, but I had a chance to take a look at some of the top shortstops in the nation, and just started filling out different scouting reports, and went to the Braves spring training. I went up and watched the Nationals play, and then when I got invited to the Take the Field event through Major League Baseball, which is an event that Elizabeth Benn and Tyrone Brooks put on. And so for 2 years, I went to that event and trained and networked and just showed my dedication and commitment to learning the game from the ground up. And from there, it just kept moving. The ball, it just kept moving. The doors kept opening. And I am here now with a job with the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's awesome. At any point, so you started, I know you told me that your baseball coaching career initially started at the youth travel level. Was there any resistance from any of the boys at that point that they were being coached by a female?
You know what? No, there was absolutely none. The athletes were fabulous, and they were very open. I think when you can talk the game with an athlete, whether they're 8 years old or whether they're 28 years old or 48 years old, when you can talk the game, I think it develops a mutual respect between the two people, speaking. And if there might have been a few, there might have been a little bit, with opposing coaches, but more so in a competitive nature that nobody likes to lose. So I think that if anything, there was only that. And I honestly would chalk it up to being more competitive than it is anything related to gender.
Yeah, no, definitely. So when the opportunity presented itself with Major League Baseball, was there ever, did it ever occur to you, really how groundbreaking it was, or was it just, here's an opportunity and I'm gonna, jump for it?
I think when you maybe see something through the media or social media, other women that were making headway, whether it be in NFL or the NBA or even within Major League Baseball, it's easy to start thinking along those lines. However, my own personal experiences, it was just natural. It's like I said, I was coming full circle with a game that I started in. So to me, it was just a very natural place to be, and still is a very natural place to operate in. And I think that given in time, I think it will hit me exactly how big this can be, that all 5 of us women, were chosen to do something pretty special. And, based on our abilities, we all 5 of us handle pressure really well. And I think that's one of the things that makes us unique and capable of thriving in this field.
Yeah. And I think you're right, where when you're in the moment, you don't really think of those things, but maybe a couple of years down the road when you look back, I heard Steve Jobs talk about in a commencement speech that he gave, about when you look back is when you can actually connect the dots and have a better understanding of what was happening and how big it was. But when you're in the moment, it's just like, hey, this is what we're doing.
yeah, you're just building, and when you're building, you're focused on laying the strongest, most sturdiest foundation out there. And I will tell you, a good example of that is the SEC conference for women's softball. And my senior year, our team, well, all the SEC teams were back in 1997. We were the first ever SEC conference, group for the conferences, the Southeastern Conference. And at that moment, you're just focused on doing your job. And that for us, that was just winning. And I did not realize until years later how big that was in our game, and the women that came after us just took that and ran with it. And they built this powerhouse of a conference. And I couldn't be more proud of how foundational it was to be part of that, but also so proud of the women and what they did with it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awesome that Major League Baseball is really, taking steps to, break down those barriers. I mean, baseball's been a good old boys club for a really long time, and I've never understood it. I mean, I was fortunate enough back in 1994 to coach against the Colorado Silver Bullets. We had a men's team that played an exhibition game against them up here in Reading. And it just it didn't make any sense to me when we played those that women's team. I mean, they were as competitive as any men's team we'd ever played. They were great athletes. They respected the game. And, again, in the moment, I didn't think a whole lot of it. But, over the past several years, more and more I've looked back, I'm like, why don't more women or why don't more girls play baseball? Why do we have this separation between if you're a boy, you play baseball, and if you're a girl, you play softball? And it's never really made a lot of sense to me. And that's one of the reasons why a few years ago, when I was with Big Vision Foundation, we made a concentrated effort to try to expand possibilities for girls to play, baseball or softball, whatever their choice was. It really wasn't about the game. It was a matter of them being able to do what they wanted to do. And that's, if they wanted to play softball, they can play softball. If they wanted to play baseball, they can play baseball. So, and I'm so grateful for the people I've met, along that path. The podcast I did with Elizabeth Ben just released, and, seeing how important it is for Major League Baseball to really increase that diversity is a big deal for me. So,
sorry.
now, so do you think, have you seen, now that you're doing this, more and more women, getting involved, not just at the coaching level, but at other levels of Major League Baseball?
Well, I've always encouraged some of my younger athletes to play Little League Baseball when softball opportunities weren't available, or if they were an outstanding athlete that needed just a little bit more of a challenge. Because our game is still growing, I think that sometimes you run into that young athlete that they don't necessarily need to play up because of the maturation, but maybe they need to play, the game of baseball, because they're going to learn the game differently. And there's just sometimes the little details that you see at the younger levels that are being taught in the game of baseball that are not being taught in the game of softball. However, I think that we've come a long way with both sports. I think there's certainly room for both. So I think that I know that the young women, if they're wanting to play collegiate softball, they're going to have to play travel softball, or be able to have a unique ability to transition between both. However, there's just room for both. I think that it's not about necessarily having to make a choice of that you like one more or the other. I think it's just what kind of opportunities you're looking for and what you would like your path to be. And I have girls that, they didn't play high school softball, but they went and played rec baseball. I've encouraged them just to stay active and stay in the game somehow. And whether it's baseball or softball, just stay playing. And actually recently I had a young girl out of Charleston area that she went and played baseball because she was not, she wasn't playing on her high school team, and she made the all-star team. She did great, but she's going off to play collegiate softball. And so I think that it really can be a tool to help you get, to your goal. I think, there's a refinement process that can occur when you allow for yourself to be expanded development in the development sense, through both sports.
Yeah, no, definitely. So shifting a little bit again to the current pandemic that we're in, obviously you said, just strengthening your faith and really, relying on the word and that sort of stuff has kept you through it. But what are some of the things you've found, beneficial of this time to kind of reset and, you're spending time at home with your boys and, just kind of getting recentered.
Dan, can I just revisit a little bit of the question earlier before I answer that one?
Sure.
I think one of the other perspectives that I take in regards to the whole gender thing, regarding baseball and softball. God created us both male and female, and he did so in a way to where we can make each other better, that we could really truly be refined through each other's strengths and weaknesses and differences. I think differences can truly make things better. So when I look at how, coming into the game of baseball as a woman and somebody with a background in the game of fast pitch, I look at it as something that I can come in and be complementary and impactful because I offer something different. And so I don't see it as coming in and making change, because nobody likes change, right? Change is uncomfortable, a lot of people. And also, and that's the last thing a man wants, right? You may not want to put that in the interview, but right? Really, truly just coming in to be a helpmate, to be somebody that can see things through a different perspective, because I was designed differently. And I think that offers the most impact, is being able to take the knowledge that I have of the game, the perspective that I have of the game, and offer that. Now, as far as the next question here, what am I doing here? Like I said earlier, usually I get out of spring cleaning. So I have been getting my home in order. I think that's one of the things that through my faith that God has reminded me, is that in order for you to be impactful to others, you have to have your own home in order. So I've been getting my home in order, purging things that are unnecessary. And then when I get a chance to work, I just got an assignment today or a few days ago, but I'm going to be starting it today. I'll get a chance to work from home. My children and I, we've gone fishing. This time of wait has also offered a time for me to get quiet and be prayerful and to truly lift up our first responders and our people who are on the front lines of this, to lift up our national leaders in prayer, and so that they can have discernment, and then offering encouragement. I have a group of young women called Birds of Blessing. It's a little ministry that I started a few years back, and every morning I send out a devotional and I send out scripture, and I just encourage. I truly just want to encourage people during this time, because again, it's a time of uncertainty and it's a time of the unknowns. And I think there are people out there that they don't deal well with that. And so if I can offer some insight and perspective and encouragement during this time, then I'm going to do so.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about your past. For those of you who are listening who don't know the, full Tina Whitlock story, not only is she a trailblazer and, someone who's out there breaking glass ceilings, but you've kind of been very resilient, I think is a good term to use. You became a widow and a mother of your second child within 9 days of each other. So if you can talk a little bit about that and how, that trial made you even stronger and made you the person you are today.
A couple years ago, I had a friend actually reach out and ask me, what was it that helped you get through that? And it really was just turning to scripture, turning to prayer, and then allowing for others to sustain me through prayer. And it was one of the most devastating times in my life. I had met my husband, Brian Whitlock, in college, and he was fortunate to see most of my career there. So during my senior year, this great time of winning championships, going to the World Series, I was also planning my wedding. And I truly, truly love this man because he loved the things that I loved, and vice versa. He loved NASCAR, and I learned to love NASCAR. And he would support us by coming to all the games. And I tell the story of after beating Florida, we swept Florida, and the whole ride home there were brooms out of his truck as he followed the bus. There were brooms hanging out the windows of the truck. Just as we were proud of those victories, he was just as proud. And we met and married, and he followed me through my career, playing professionally and also with Team USA. And I made him a promise that if I didn't make the Olympic team in 2000, that I would hang my cleats up and that we would start a family. And that is what we did. So we started our family, had my first son, Aaron, and within 2 years, we wanted to have another child, and did not know with either one of my children if we were having a boy or girl, because to us that did not matter. So it just gave us the chance to argue and fight over a name for both of them, because who doesn't want that kind of challenge in their relationship? And so when I got the news, like I said, I was due any day, and I'd gotten a phone call that morning, and it was somebody from his work, and they had called to tell me that he had been taken to the hospital. And I remember I was frantic because I was searching around for, cell phone. Not everybody had a cell phone at that time, but he had one, and he had actually left it at home. And so there was no way for me to call him or anything because he had actually left the phone at home. And I remember calling his parents, and they came over and got me, and we drove to the hospital. And walking into that hospital, you're full of hope. There's a lot of unknown during that time. It's tragic, but you just don't know what's going on. And I remember and walking into that emergency room and getting the news from the doctor. It was immediate pain. And when God talks about how your bone, like you can feel pain to your bones, that's the kind of pain that I was experiencing. And I was lost. I was lost in that moment. And I truly, truly had to rely on the strength of others, to lift me up in prayer, and to just rely on my faith at that time to get me refocused, because within a matter of days, I was going to be giving birth to another child. And I've shared this in other interviews. It was amazing how God brought grief and joy together in that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he does it, but he did it. And I gave birth to my second son, Brian Kelly Whitlock. Like I said, we didn't have a name. I didn't go with the junior. I named him Brian Kelly II. So I have 2 boys. And out of that time of tragedy, I had a choice to make. Because anytime we go through tragedy, we're not going to be the same. We are not going to remain the same. We are going to change. But the thing is, we have a choice. We have a choice of whether or not we're going to let that change be for the good or for the bad. And I will tell you, there's times when I wavered, throughout that whole healing process, where I wavered and I compromised, and just kind of going through the ugliness of grief. And the one thing I didn't lose sight of was the fact that I believed in God. I believed in his promises. I believed in his son, Jesus, and he held on to me. He held on to me when I didn't have the strength to hold on. And as my strides got stronger, so did my boldness, so did my courage, and he restored my family. And we just continued to walk in faith in him and where he was going to take us. And he's taken us a few places. He took us to New York. He's brought us back here to South Carolina. He's taken me to the major leagues. And I am very grateful for the trials. The one thing that I walk away with that whole story, and I know he's not done because there's going to be many more stories to write about, is I knew love. My husband and I, we loved each other. And I think that is the one thing that I was reminded of by my friends and by my family, was the fact that my husband loved me. I loved him. And there's people out there that have never experienced love. And so right now I'm actually, it's my word for this year is love, and learning how to demonstrate love to those people that are very much in need of it. And so I'm taking on that challenge right now from God to demonstrate love.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's very inspiring. And I can tell, and the minute you started talking about your husband, your face literally lit up. So you guys definitely had something very, very special. And you're right, a lot of married couples don't experience that, and certainly not across the long term. That's something I'm incredibly grateful for. With my wife, we have a great relationship, and we can lean on each other. And but by the same token, I don't know what how I would have reacted to what you've gone through, but I'm sure I would have gotten through it, because, God never gives us more than we can handle. And even though when you're in the battle, you may not view it that way, but again, as you look back and connect the dots, you do understand it. So, was there anything in particular that you would kind of fall back to in those times of doubt as you were going through that? Like a specific verse or anything like that?
Yeah, out of Philippians 3:14, I had talked about how it was the verse I chose in college, and it talks about forgetting what is behind and pressing on towards the prize that Christ Jesus won for us. And that whole passage, it talks about, just that we've not obtained this, that, or the other, but yet, we press on. And I actually have it engraved on my headstone at the age of 27. I purchased a headstone, something that, we don't think as a young adult that we're going to be doing. And that verse is there on my headstone. And so I'm reminded that, or when I was young, it was all about like, oh, that was just a strikeout, forget it, move on. Next at bat, next pitch, great failure recovery, and it's biblical, however, now it's much more deeply rooted, how that verse plays out in my life, about how, really forgetting about the things, the burdens, the worries, the unknowns, the uncontrollables, being able to forget about those things and really maintain a focus and press on. And so I think when you talked earlier about resilience, I think some of the things that have played out in my life are perseverance and endurance, and that ability to press on, and I think that's one thing that I really learned, that failure truly can benefit you in the long run if you just press on. And that press on has been the thing that I've held on to, that and the theme of the birds in my life. God has told us in scripture that he is going to take care of us, because he takes care of the birds and he provides all their needs. And so for me being a young widow at that time, that was one of the things that he reminded me of, is that I can look to the birds and know that just as they are taken care of, he will take care of my family. And to me, you can see maybe in the back here, I've got bird pictures everywhere in my house, and constantly reminded that if we live like the birds and we have that kind of trust in God, we truly are going to live a very abundant life, and our needs will be met. He's also brought about some of our wants as well, but mainly our needs have been met. And to me, it's a huge blessing.
Yeah, I think the theme of the birds is very poignant for the time we're in right now, because like you said, there's a lot of people that are worried and concerned about, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next month. And I think that's a great thing for people to rely on today, is that story of the birds, is that, at the end of the day, God is going to provide for us.
Yeah, being home this time of wait, I realized that there's a lot of things in my house that I do not need. So I'm really truly purging a lot of things, and that we really need very little to have an abundant life. We need very little. So I really truly am purging through a lot of the things that I have that just take up space and clutter, and truly refining my perspective on what truly my needs are. And God's certainly helping us do that.
Yeah, well, for Sandy and I, that's perfect for us too, because we're purging everything and downsizing from a big house to a small RV, and we talk about that a lot. That this has given us an opportunity to eat food in the freezer that has been there for who knows how long, and we're not going to be taking it with us, and just we'll end up auctioning all this stuff off once the house sells. So yeah, it's definitely relatable, for us to be able to purge. I mean, yesterday was a beautiful day up here in Pennsylvania, so we were going through some stuff and cleaning up the yard. And you're right, it's amazing the amount of stuff that we accumulate that we really don't need.
Yeah, I am sentimental about a lot of things. And so really continuing just to know like what really truly is something that I need in my life. And so there's been a few challenges. Do I really need that? Do I need to keep that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, because I'm sentimental as well, but over the course of the last probably month or so, there's really been this kind of weird feeling where I've been able to say, you know what, I don't need this anymore. I still have the memory of how I got it and all that sort of stuff. So that sort of stuff we've offered to our kids, and if they want it, that's great, and if they don't, that's great too. It doesn't change the memory of it or anything like that. So that's really kind of interesting. So we're just about out of time here, and the title of this podcast is The Journey of My Mother's Son, and it's really gonna, these episodes that we're doing now are kind of pre-journey before Sandy and I hop out there in the RV and get going. And I'm grateful that a little over a year and a half ago, God had us cross paths at Spooky Nook, and we really, that's the only time we've actually physically been together for a very short amount of time, but yet you made an impact on me then that I immediately wanted to reach out to you on social media and stay connected with you. And you've been an inspiration as I've learned more about your story, and just again, one of those people who I look to stay balanced, to separate myself. When I got to turn the news off and look for positive, you're one of the person's pages that I'm looking for. And so again, I'm very, very grateful that God has had our paths crossed. And don't be surprised if someday you get a text from me and I say, hey, we're near Columbia, or if you're in St. Louis at the time, or wherever.
We'll have a meal. We'll fellowship and have a meal.
No doubt, because that's a lot of the things that my mom used to do. I mean, she would just end up on someone's doorstep and be like, hey, I'm here. So that's part of what we're going to do, is really be able to connect with a lot of the people that we've met who are scattered throughout the country, and we're looking forward to that. But the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People, Many Little Places, which refers to a Michael Franti song where the opening line is many little people, many little places are doing many little things, and the whole world changes. And that's really what I want to try to focus on with these podcasts is these many little people I've met. What are some of the many little things that they're doing to make the world a better place? So, you have a slew of them that we just talked about in the podcast, but, what is that kind of one go-to thing that you feel you're making this world a better place?
I would like to think that my intentions of demonstrating love, I'm really trying to be intentional about that. I know sometimes we feel like we can only demonstrate those things when we're, face to face with someone. But I think now is a perfect time to say kind things, do kind acts, demonstrate patience, right? And then encouragement. I think one of the things that I certainly can offer up that might be little but make big impact is offering up encouragement. I'm trying to encourage as many people as I can during this time, and I'm hoping that this is just good practice to continue doing it, for however long it takes. And love and encouragement.
That's awesome. Well, I can tell you for me, it's certainly working for sure. And I hope the St. Louis Cardinals really understand the treasure that they've received and adding Tina Whitlock to their staff. And I can't wait to continue to follow, what you and the other 4 women are doing. And hopefully this time next year, we're talking about, 10 or 15 women that are, coaching in Major League Baseball, whether it's at, the low minor league level or actually at the, the big league level. So really excited to continue to follow what you're doing. And I thank you for the time that you've taken here, to sit down and talk about this, be able to, I hope I can, help tell your story a little bit as well, because I think it's very inspirational.
Thank you, Dan, so much. And I'll be praying over your next adventure, and come to a ball game.
Oh, we will. Well, so folks, as always, if you want to check out my blogs and other podcasts, be sure to check me out at danclouser.com. Tina, thanks again. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you.